Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and search Tuesdays with Tally. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share the program as well. And now your host, Brian Tally.
Welcome back to Tuesdays with Tally Podcast, where we add real life value to the lives of everyday people. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The eyeline information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. We are on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Anchor FM, and Spotify. Simply search Tuesdays with Tally. And be sure to like, share, and subscribe to get every episode and stay up to date with the latest and greatest our guest and this show has to offer. Now, folks, today we celebrate another milestone, day 139 of this brand new podcast. Today will mark our 95th episode. Yes, folks, 95 episodes in 139 days. Now, are you a business owner? And if you are, I want to sit down and have a conversation with you. Let's advertise your business right here on this podcast. Let me help you reach your goals. Let's put a marketing plan together and develop a strategy to take your business to the next level. All you got to do is email me, thetallybill@gmail.com. That's thetallybill@gmail.com. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. Dr. Josh Briley is a licensed clinical psychologist and the clinical education director for Alpha-Stim. He began his career working for the Federal Bureau of Prisons, first as a staff psychologist at the Federal Correction Complex in Beaumont, Texas, then as a residential drug abuse program coordinator at the Federal Correction Institution in El Reno, Oklahoma. Dr. Bradley also served on 2 institutional crisis support teams. He was also selected to be an assistant team leader for the regional crisis support team in the South Central region of the Bureau of Prisons and served as both a regional and national trainer for crisis support team exercises and classes. His duties with crisis support teams made him proficient in psychological first aid, disaster response, critical incident management, and shelter management. After leaving the Bureau of Prisons, Dr. Briley served as the clinical psychologist for a community outpatient clinic in Central Texas for the Veterans Health Administration. He became proficient in treating veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, as well as with depression, anxiety, substance abuse, suicidal ideation, and family difficulties. And with that, we are honored to be joined by Dr. Josh Briley. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
The pleasure is all mine. I'm very excited to have you as well. You know, we are living in some very daunting times in our country when it comes to mental health, and you know, everybody has their ideas and this and that, but unfortunately, I haven't seen a lot out there that has personally helped me other than pushing the pills. And, you know, I've started to do a lot of research online myself as I am a chronic pain patient and I suffer tremendously from anxiety as well as depression at times. And, you know, I'm hit so much on a daily basis from the veteran community. Veterans reach out to me all the time in crisis mode. And unfortunately, there's so much of it out there that it's really hard to even keep up with how we treat folks that are broken and folks that are looking for that healing piece in their life, you know, to live the life of happiness that they were intended to live. Right. You know, in a life that we all deserve to live. 20 years of war has put a lot of post-traumatic stress, anxiety, depression, chronic pain on a lot of veterans out there. And again, I found the Alpha-Stim online. I actually have a family member that started to use it. She broke down in tears because it's actually working for her, and she turned this on to me. And in turn, I reached out and I started to do my research on this Alpha-Stim, and you are sitting now across from me here today. We are going to talk about exactly what you do and exactly what the Alpha-Stim can do for people.
Okay, sounds great.
So I want you to tell me a little bit about the Alpha-Stim and what it does.
So the Alpha-Stim basically is a portable, non-invasive device. It uses microcurrent to just balance the nervous system. You clip the ear clips to your earlobes, and it puts no more than about 500, 600 microamps into your nervous system, and that matches the current that your nervous system is already using. Plus, our patented waveform generates all of the electrical frequencies that your nervous system uses to just balance everything out. So, basically the way this works is your nerve cells have little protrusions coming off of them called receptors. And that's how like medications work, is they bond with those receptors and have an effect on the nerve cell. Well, those same receptors can be activated with an electrical frequency, and they will act on the nerve cell when they're stimulated or activated the same way that they would if a medication or a neurotransmitter or something bonded with them. So by putting all of the frequencies that your nervous system uses, through the current, then we're able to activate the receptors that will calm down a hyperactive cell or will stimulate an underactive cell. And we've got research that shows that. You can see it on fMRI, you can see it on EEGs. There's an increase in activity for areas that were underactive from like depression or something like that. And then there's a decrease in activity in areas of the brain that are hyperactive from, say, anxiety or pain. And so it just calms everything down. And by calming it down, your nervous system goes back to working the way it was designed to. And so you feel better. You don't have the pain. You have more energy. You're more focused. It really is just kind of an amazing device. One of those things that sounds too good to be true, but I've used it myself. I've put it on veterans, and I've seen the results. It's amazing.
Now, doctor, I have a question for you now when it comes to the different levels of pain and the different levels of depression and anxiety, as we all of our bodies are different, and everybody's going to take differently to say medications or to perhaps this Alpha-Stim. Do you have different controls on this that can up it, can low, and lower it?
That's a great question. Really, you don't. So you can turn the device up. Let me grab one.
Mm-hmm.
This is an aid. I don't have any of the attachments on it, but you can just kind of, if I can get up here, you can see it. Watch me grab one that doesn't have batteries.
Mm-hmm.
Naturally, I would grab one that doesn't want to work.
How long does the treatment
last? So demo aside. So what you do is once you wet the pads on the ear clips with our included Alpha-Stim conducting solution, clip them to your earlobes as close to the jawline as possible, one on each earlobe. And then when you turn the device on, it defaults to 100 microamps. So you just turn the current up. You may start to feel a little tingling or prickling feeling on your earlobes. I'm not worried about that unless that becomes uncomfortable. But what you're looking for is any kind of discomfort. So for most people, that's a sense of vertigo, like you stood up way too fast, that kind of head rush, the room is spinning feeling, or feeling like you're standing on a boat in the water, that kind of rocking, unsteady feeling. Those feelings or any other kind of discomfort is just an indication that you've got the current a little too high for your nervous system for that treatment session. So you just turn it down till that feeling goes away, and that's your therapeutic level. And then depending on where that level is will determine how long you need to treat. So if you're 250 to 400 microamps, 2.5 to 4 on the screen, you only need 20 minutes. If you're between a 1 and a 2 on the screen, then you're likely going to need the full 60 minutes. And everybody's different. I can't go higher than a 1 on the ear clips. I usually can't do the ear clips at all. I've put it on veterans who could turn it all the way up with no problem. So Everybody's different. It's not a thing where, oh, my pain's really bad today, so I need to turn it up higher. Or, I'm feeling really, I'm having a really bad anxiety day, I need to turn it up higher. Always turn it up every time to that point of discomfort, and then down to where that goes away. So.
Can this device simultaneously treat pain and anxiety at the same time?
Yes, it treats everything at the same time. Anxiety, insomnia, depression, and pain, because we're putting all of the frequencies into the nervous system and activating so many of the nerve cell receptors at the same time, and to bring everything into balance. So, instead of it acting like, okay, well, I'm taking my anxiety medication now, but that's not doing anything for pain. Now I got to take one for pain. Okay, well, now I got to take a pill to help me sleep. Mm-hmm. This is doing it all at the same time without the side effects. So it's not like taking a medication. It's like taking an entire pharmacy.
Okay, so, I have anxiety, and a lot of the times I have anxiety knowing that I need to take my pills everywhere I go with me. I never know when I'm going to have a panic attack, or sometimes I just kind of panic because I know that I haven't taken a pill and I need to take a pill, and it gets into my head. Now,
I'm laughing because I've heard this story so many times from different, not just veterans, but civilians as well who have these problems.
Yeah, I mean, and for me, it's very real, and I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel that way. And my only concern is if I were to start something like this, and of course you would have to wean yourself completely off these pills, and it would probably take a very, very, very long time, especially a guy like me who has been very heavily medicated for years. Mm-hmm. Now, what if one day I were to magically heal myself from not having to take all of these anxiety and depression meds, but because of the Alpha-Stim? Now psychologically, will my mind accept that? Or is my mind now so far down this rabbit hole to where I know I need to take this pill, because if I don't take this pill, I'm going to not feel well. It's almost as if your mind is playing tricks on you.
So for one thing, we never recommend coming off your medications without the doctor's guidance. Mm-hmm. We do have a lot of patients who report they're able to come off their meds. We also have patients who are able to come down, or, they keep taking the same level of medication. So as you mentioned, everybody's different. This is not a guarantee that you're not going to be on medications in the future. But the results with Alpha-Stim treatments are cumulative. So the more consecutive days you treat, the better the results are going to be, and the longer they're going to last. Now, for anxiety and pain, you generally see results in the first treatment. I've had Vietnam vets, I've had Desert Storm vets, as well as the Iraqi, Afghanistan vets from the last 20 years. They're constantly keyed up. They're hypervigilant. They never relax. They never allow themselves to relax. Mm-hmm. And within 5 minutes of putting the ear clips on, you can literally see them just kind of melt into the chair. Their tone of voice changes. The edge comes out of their voice. It's amazing. So, it does work. And the way I describe it is it's sort of like, like an antibiotic. When you're prescribed an antibiotic, you feel really, really horrible. So you're very religious about taking that medication. But then as you start to get better, you don't think about it as much. Mm-hmm. And with Alpha-Stim, you can kind of do that. We do recommend daily treatment for at least once a day for 3 to 6 weeks. And then if you want to start tapering down after that, you can. We recommend once or twice a week for maintenance. There are people who only use it as needed once they get to that point. And then we've got people who use it every single day as part of their self-care. So, it really just depends on what works best for you, how the device works for you, what you need to do. We've talked to people who, once they come off their meds, and they come off their meds easier, following their doctor's guidance and using Alpha-Stim.
Now, is there a counter effect to using the Alpha-Stim while maintaining your daily regimen for physical pain and anxiety and depression meds?
No, there's no counter indications or counteracting effects. The only effect that we've seen clinically is because we're activating those nerve cell receptors electrically. That makes it easier for medication molecules to get into the nerve cell. And so your medication may have effectively become up to 30% stronger on the same dose. So we'll see that sometimes where they'll start experiencing the medication side effects again as if their dosage had increased. And they'll call us on clinical support and we'll say, well, go talk to your doctor because those sound more like medication side effects than, the rare and self-limiting side effects we get from Alpha-Stim. So
how long has Alpha-Stim been out there and readily available on the market?
So the original device was called the Alpha-Stim 2000. It was about the size of a typewriter, and it was for clinic use only. It was only for healthcare providers. And it was invented in 1981. And then based on the data that Dr. Kirsch, who invented Alpha-Stim, received from that, because everybody who did an Alpha-Stim 2000 treatment on their patient would send the results into him. And he looked over everything and then developed more portable versions. The two models that we have on the market now, the Alpha-Stim A, the Alpha-Stim M, are the 7th and 8th generations of the devices. So,
why am I just now hearing about this non-invasive treatment with little to no side effects that works?
Actually, there are a lot of medical devices on the market that work that are virtually unheard of. I've talked to veterans who, and actually had a veteran say that to me one time. He's like, I'm not surprised I haven't heard about it. I use, and he rattled off 3 devices for his pain that I had also never heard of. And he's like, we're not big pharma. We don't have big pharma money. We're a small company in Central Texas or North Texas, actually, that, we're trying to get out there. We're trying to, become more well-known. Our biggest customers are the DOD and the VA. But even with that, there are some VA facilities that won't let us in. There are some VA facilities that only, pain management is able to use them, or only mental health. So, the saying, if you've seen one VA, you've seen one VA. And so every VA, and I've talked to several of them, and they all have different hurdles to jump through to be able to get one. And you usually have to try other methods before they will order you an Alpha-Stim.
How do we break through that red tape, doctor, and through that bureaucratic process?
So with all things VA, you start with your primary care provider. Talk to them. Hopefully, you have a good one who will reach out. If they don't know about it, they'll reach out and ask questions. You can also feel free to email us, info@epii.com. And we've got a government services team that can maybe say, oh, in the Temple VA system, this is who has it, as opposed to, with Colorado may be different, California may be different. But I do know there's 2 ways that we get acceptance in the VA system. One is providers who are familiar with it. They learned about it from somewhere else and bring it with them. Or they learn about it the way I did. I had a patient tell me about it and reached out to the company for more information. The local rep came and spoke with me. And then, I fought for a few years with the VA for them to let me as a psychologist use it. Once I used it, word of mouth spread among my veterans, and I ordered 1,000 units in 12 months. So
why isn't this system wide?
Don't ask me to explain government.
It just doesn't make any sense. Like, why wouldn't this be system wide if, this is working and one VA is, purchasing 1,000 of these, and another one doesn't even really know what it is or doesn't bring it in as treatment. So we'll skip that part. So let's go here now. Now, what I want to know is this product is easily accessible in Europe. And I mean, you can get it at your local drugstore, if I believe, over the counter.
Not quite. You do have to go through one of the distributors. to get it. But the difference in Europe and other countries in the world and here is you don't need an order from a licensed provider to get one. In the UK, for example, that is still how most people get one. They still learn about it from their doctor. And then they have a system set up where you can, I think, rent one and use it, as opposed to, in the US, your doctor orders it and you purchase one. Or in the case of the VA, once you jump through the hoops, the provider sends a request to prosthetics, and then prosthetics places the order, and and again, every VA is different. My VA would send it directly to the veteran. My dad is in the North Texas VA system. When he finally jumped through the hoops to get one, they sent it to his physical therapist, and he went in for final instructions on how to use it. So every VA is different, but if you can get the VA to order it for you, there's no cost to the veteran.
Say if you can't get the VA to work with you, and the veteran is saying, I've got to try this. What is the cost out of pocket?
So the cost out of pocket for the aid, which only does the ear clips, and it's cleared in the US for anxiety, insomnia, and depression, runs $840. The kind of a little bit larger device, the Alpha-Stim M, which also does the ear clips, but also has probes and self-adhesive electrodes called AS-trodes, where you can treat pain peripherally with the exact same technology. That one retails for $1,299. Both devices have a 5-year warranty. Both devices have free customer support, clinical support, tech support for the life of the device. And we've got these generations were introduced to the market in 2012. And we have people who still have the original ones calling us. We have people who have the previous generations still calling us with questions on how to use it, and they're still running. So if you take care of it, the only cost out of pocket is for the accessories, the pads, the ear clips when they run out, stuff like that. So.
One of the main reasons why I wanted to have you on, Doctor, is because, everybody talks about saving lives, and, preventing veteran suicides. And, what I've seen a lot of is very little action, in the community. I mean, there's a lot of fundraisers. There's a lot of people out selling their shirts and their hats, and they're trying to raise awareness. But that's all I see is the awareness driver. But we already know that there's a systemic issue out there.
Right
now, and that's why I wanted to come directly to the source again to get some action here, so we can educate the masses and the veteran community and the military veterans, and first responders, and really everybody. I mean, we all suffer trauma, and there's so much real life value here that I think that could be added. And especially coming from someone like yourself that can offer that hope, that happiness, and that healing. And if this is working so well here, with everybody that you have seen and witnessed, and it's clinically proven to help, why are we hearing more about this in the general public? It just doesn't make any sense.
And again, we're working to change that. We are working to improve our marketing, improve our education. We've got plans in place to greatly expand our provider education in 2023, greatly expand just kind of our presence, kind of go more into the VA and DoD, but also spreading into the private sector, trying to get insurance reimbursement and stuff like that. So we have things behind the scenes going on to make this more of a recognizable product, where a patient can go in and say, just like mine did with me. And actually my patient came in, he had an Alpha-Stim and told me about it, but I've had patients come in and say, hey, I've heard about this device, this Alpha-Stim that's supposed to treat anxiety, insomnia, depression, and pain. Can you order one for me? And, some providers like, nope, never heard of it. Can't be any good. Other providers will have done the research or reached out to us and educated themselves a little bit about it. And then decided to use it. And then there are some who are just like, hey, I've never heard of it, but it's not going to hurt. I'll write you the order and let me know how it works. And I talked to one such provider in June. He's an internal medicine specialist. And he said he had a patient with just severe anxiety, severe insomnia, and as a result of the stress and all that, from all of that, her blood sugars were all over the place. She came in, hey, I've heard about this device, this Alpha-Stim. Can you order me one? He's like, yeah, sure. Why not? Ordered it, did a follow-up with her 3 weeks after it arrived. And he said she was like a different person. Just calm. She was sleeping better. Her anxiety had decreased significantly. And she was feeling better. And so that spurred his interest. And I actually spoke with him at a doctor dinner education program back in June. And he was very interested in tracking. He's ordering it for his patients now and tracking how they're doing, not just with their pain and emotional symptoms, but also their lab work, because the mind and the body are connected. So if your brain's chaotic, your body's chaotic. If we can calm your mind down, then your body will follow suit.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Now, like you said, you got some doctors that, they have patients that come in, they say, hey, I want to try this. And they say, well, I've never heard about it. So yeah, that's not an option. We need to have a more open-minded approach here, when it comes to new technology. And like you said, when we opened up, hey, look, we're not big pharma. We don't have big pharma money here. Is that a hurdle, perhaps, that Alpha-Stim is facing as you advance this new technology forward?
I think that's short answer is yes, but I think that's a hurdle for most medical devices. So there's two things that happen I've noticed with medical devices since joining this company. One is you have the devices that come on the market. They do all the social media advertising. They do all the email advertising. They just kind of flood the market. And then, but the device maybe doesn't live up to its promise. And it just kind of fizzles away. There's been several like that since I've started. Or there's devices like ours, they work, but getting the research, getting the regulatory clearances, getting the education out there, that all is very, very expensive. And so there's not the budget then to blanket, the world with advertising and media that, hey, this device works, because we're focused more on doing the research, getting the clearances, getting in the markets like that. Like I said, we don't have big pharma money. We don't have an unlimited amount of funds. So we are, like I said, we are working on it, but I think any kind of small device company faces those same hurdles of how do we both invest our resources into the data, the information we need to get the FDA clearances, the clearances in Europe, the clearances in whatever countries we want to market in, and also educate providers and also spread the word. So it's a juggle. Which ones do you do? Because you've got a limited pot of money and everything pulls from it. So, but like I said, we're 2023 is going to be an exciting year. We've been doing some changes the latter half of 2022 behind the scenes to kind of launch out and get name recognition out there more, expand our education programs, all that. So it'll be good.
Well, it's working, because that's how I found you, was word of mouth.
Yeah.
And I think your biggest asset here is going to be the veteran and first responder community.
Yes.
Walking billboards. Okay. To whereas a point, if you have a product out there that is doing a very good job, and it's doing what it says it's going to do, and it's starting to heal folks and give their life back and their livelihood and their happiness and their joy and everything that they have been robbed from, and having this disease and, anxiety and depression literally sucking the life out of you. And when you begin to recapture that, you begin to live a life of gratitude. And when you live a life of gratitude, people see that. They see the change and they want it, right?
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what happened in my clinic. I'd been working with veterans, with my veterans in individual and group therapy for 8 years at that point. And when I put Alpha-Stim on them, they took it home, they started using it, they started telling their friends and family, and people who had never once asked to see me as the psychologist in the clinic were suddenly coming in and going, hey, my buddy told me that you have this device where he's sleeping better. He's able to walk without pain. He's able to, go to a restaurant with his family. He's able to go to Walmart, if you can imagine that, and actually walk through the aisles, not sit up in the front. All of that. And he goes, what is this thing? And that's literally how I ended up ordering 1,000 devices in 12 or 13 months, was word of mouth from my veterans. I also started reaching out to my colleagues in the other clinics in the Central Texas system, getting them set up with it. And they all saw similar explosions in their clinics. So, word of mouth is great. So definitely, if you're using one, tell everybody, and it will, So
when something works, when somebody's getting their life back and they're experiencing that happiness again through healing, and they will talk.
They will talk.
Because that's the most important thing in their life right now, is getting it back.
Yeah.
And what I tell a lot of people is, right now, there hasn't been a better time to be a veteran in this country. There are so many 501c3s out there that are wanting to help, that are willing to help. They're giving veterans, adrenaline therapy and horseback riding and hunting and fishing and, faith-based groups. I mean, there's so many groups out there, but let's get to the bottom line here. The bottom line here is about saving lives, and you can't go horseback riding every single day to get that anxiety under control. And you can't go, on a dune buggy every single day of your life to get that adrenaline that you need to calm yourself down.
Right.
And these are the products here that when I'm donating to a 501c3, I believe that perhaps this is what more veteran organizations need to be buying, because if you can heal the person, again, a lot of this other stuff is Band-Aids, but it's the camaraderie, it's bringing the veteran community back and hanging out with one another. It's really just getting them out of the house and out of that comfort zone.
Right. Which I absolutely endorse. I mean, I had 9 process groups a week when I was at the VA. And they were very, mental health based and like that, but it also definitely used that rapport and that camaraderie and, gave this sense of brotherhood that's sometimes missing for veterans in civilian world. And then when you add Alpha-Stim to that, or add that stuff to a device like Alpha-Stim that treats the brain functioning that's misfiring, that's clinically proven to be misfiring in your brain when you struggle with anxiety, when you struggle with depression, insomnia, pain, then it just makes it all that easier to do that. And we have studies that show quality of life improves after just a few weeks with Alpha-Stim treatment. So.
Sure. And, and again, the Alpha-Stim, it was a building block. It's a vehicle, if you will, that will get you from being broken to living a life of gratitude again. And again, all the other events and all the other, things that you can do out there in the veteran community with your brothers and sisters in uniform, again, it's all great because it's helping you heal. Again, it's pulling you out of that couch. It's pulling you out of that comfort zone. It's allowing you to re-engage in a population that you have shied away from for so many years because of, mental health or physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, whatever it may be. So having this device readily accessible to help other veterans, all it's going to do is a win-win situation. And when this happens, I don't know why we're not screaming this from the rooftops, because I know I most certainly will be once I get mine, once I see it start to work. And I pray to God that it does for me, because I don't know what your preferred candidate is, but I mean, everything that I've looked on online, I've checked every single one of those boxes. So I would be the walking billboard for something like this if it were to work for me. I mean, without, with everything that my body's been put through, and my spine, and continued surgeries and anxiety and depression. And I mean, just, you name it, I got it.
Right. And that's what I found with most veterans is you're not just treating one thing. They weren't just coming to me because they had depression. They were coming to me and they had depression. They had sleeping problems. They had anxiety. And then they also had these medical issues that exacerbated their mental health and vice versa. And so, when I was at that clinic, it was a very good dynamic between medical and mental health. Like, we worked very closely together. I was able to go to their, just go right down the hall to their doctors and say, hey, this is what I think is going on, or, I think we need to adjust this med or whatever. Why did you make this decision regarding their care? Something, so that it was a very collaborative approach. But then once I was able to introduce Alpha-Stim into that dynamic, into that treatment regimen, it was a game changer. And within a few weeks, medicals coming to me going, what are you doing? Like, they're not asking for, they always come in asking for pain meds. They didn't ask for pain meds this visit. They still have some. What's going on? And so, I was able to explain it. I had spouses coming in saying, oh my gosh, they've been so much easier to live with the last 6 weeks. Thank you so much. They're laughing more. Like I said, they went shopping with me. Whatever, I had one wife come in and say, my husband, the veteran, isn't coming home at the end of the day and isolating himself in his woodshed, drinking all night anymore. Now he's having dinner with me. He's spending time with me. It's, just improved not just the veteran's quality of life, but family as well, and friends. So it's exciting. And I hear stories like this all the time. And especially from the veteran community, my heart is still very much on veterans since I worked there, worked with them for 9 years. My dad's a veteran. And so my heart is still very much on, let's get these men and women the help they need, the help they deserve.
Right.
That was my approach there. And it's still my approach here working. And that's how actually the company lured me away, is they're like, well, you can stay trying to influence, veterans in one small community, or you can influence veterans and civilians nationwide. And I'm like, done. That's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Why treat and help 100 people when you could treat 1 million people?
Exactly.
Help 1 million people.
Exactly. And that is the most rewarding part of my job, is like, I go to conferences, and like in about 3 weeks, I'm going to Orlando to a first responder conferences, and it's all about mental health for first responders. And what I like about it is it's all first responders. It's not just law enforcement. It's firefighters, it's dispatchers, it's corrections, it's emergency room workers, it's, everybody that could be considered a first responder, and their spouses. And so there's going to be a lot of good presentations on resilience and overcoming stress and mental illness and all that. But then EPI, the company that manufactures and distributes Alpha-Stim, is also a big supporter of that. And so we're at almost every conference. We do demos. We talk to them about how to get one. And it's just great seeing the results we get, whether it's, I've typically, when I go out on something like that, somebody will come to me with pain, for example, chronic pain, their back's hurting, their shoulders hurting, their knees are hurting, whatever. I always ask how, what's your pain level? The average answer is about a 7 out of 10. If they go higher than that, then I'm like, no, are you limping? I look to see what's going on. But I can generally get it down to below a 2 in less than 5 minutes. So
if you guys ever want to experiment on a guy who had a bone-eating staph infection that destroyed his spine for 4 months, let me know, because like I said, I live in severe chronic pain all up and down my back. I've got over a dozen pretty wild diagnoses, to include a bladder paralysis and radiculopathy and all this nerve damage up and down. I just had to have another spinal surgery here not long ago. The anxiety, the depression, the insomnia, I literally checked every single one of those boxes, and I will most certainly contact my primary care provider, but I've already done that. I've done that 2 months ago, and I haven't heard anything back from her. And I will most be definitely following up today with that and asking for this device, because this is something that I need to have in my life to begin this. Because look, I'm doing much better now than say what I was 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago. I've been getting 1% better every single day for a very, very long time. But let's face it, I live a life of pain, and that's been my life for quite some time. You said, your veterans are 7s. So I wake up at a 5. I wake up at a 5, 6. So, I go to bed at a 9, sometimes over, But again, my pills are always on my doorstep without delay. But it seems as if jumping through hoops to perhaps getting something like this that may actually really work, that doesn't have the side effects, and that is non-evasive, it just makes all the sense to me in the world to get this. Now, you had said, there's, so many issues, that feed off of each other. The anxiety feeds off the depression feeds off the pain. It just compounds. Everything just compounds. And then you end up in this world of self-isolation, right? And then you end up in this world of self-medicating. Self-medicating will often lead to suicide. And that's when it's too late to go in there and help these veterans or whoever may be hurting. Yes. Now, if you start this device, will it help you think more clearly to begin? Because look, you said pills are Band-Aids.
Right.
That's all they are. It's not going to fix and treat the problem itself. Now, a lot of therapy and thinking through a lot of things, whether it's yoga or this and that, things that clear your mind to where you can go in there and kind of sort through the traumatic type events in your life to store them somewhere else so you can live this life again of healing and happiness. When you start to do this, are the receptors in your brain going to help you file all this trauma?
So what I will say is Alpha-Stim will help calm down the emotional distress so that you're then able to do the work that you just described. I used it obviously I'm a psychologist, so I used it most often in therapy. And I would have veterans who would either put it on in the waiting room or put it on when they got into my office or into the group room. And then, if you've been in therapy, there's always a few minutes of small talk at the beginning of the session. How are you doing? How was your week? I'm good, thank you, or, whatever. There's a few minutes of small talk. And then hopefully the therapist tries to get you into the meat of why you're coming to see them, and which is the very stuff that you don't want to talk about. Because it's painful, and it's human nature. We don't do painful things, right? You don't grab a knife by the blade more than once, because it hurts. So, same thing in therapy. That's often the struggle with a therapist and a patient, is the patient's coming in saying, I need help. I know I need to work through this. And the therapist is like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And then an emotional wall goes up. Or on the other extreme, they do start talking about it, and the memories and emotions are tied together. You can't separate them. And so when you start talking about an emotionally intense event in your life, those same emotions will come up. The example I used to give, just to help people understand it, is if you remember back to the birth of your first child, you know, and for a few weeks after that, you were hopefully, you know, floating on cloud nine. You were showing that baby's picture to everybody who would stand still for 2 seconds in your proximity, talking about all the details of the birth and what they were doing at home, all that, What your mind is doing is processing this emotionally intense event. And then as you do that over a period of about 6 weeks, then the emotional intensity dies down to where it's not flooding you. Now, we don't think about it in those terms because that is generally a happy event and it doesn't hurt us to talk about it. It makes us feel good to talk about it. And then, you know, 5, 10, 20, 30 years later, when you still talk about that event in detail, you still feel a little bit of those emotions. You still get the warm fuzzies. When it's a traumatic or painful event, it's the exact same process, but we try to push it away because it's painful. Or the flooding of the emotional intensity is too much to handle. And so I would see both extremes. With Alpha-Stim, it helped lower that emotional defenses so they could talk about it, and that let them feel the appropriate emotions without being flooded. So they felt the appropriate emotion at the appropriate level. And then the more they processed it, the more they talked about it, and the more they used Alpha-Stim between sessions, the more that the intensity of that emotional distress died down. And they were able, like you said, to kind of, a lot of people, especially with a traumatic or painful memory, their goal in coming to therapy is I want to forget it. And you're not going to forget it. It's not possible. But it is possible to, like you said, kind of put it in order, put it away, file it away, and have it not be the sole defining thing in your life.
Yeah, it's all about processing, right?
Yeah.
It's all about
Yeah, Alpha-Stim absolutely helps that. Now, what I saw in therapy even before using Alpha-Stim was once you got like the primary issue resolved, there was always another one coming up because none of us have lived in a vacuum our lives. I saw it with veterans. I saw it with civilians. You know, you process one thing and the next one's like, oh, my turn. Alpha-Stim helped that process as well. So I had one guy who would come in and like every 2 weeks is like, man, I've been having all of these memories coming up, all these dreams come up about a new experience, a new event that I had not remembered.
Right.
A couple of sessions working through that with him, put it away. He felt good for a few days, and then the next one would come up. But if he hadn't had Alpha-Stim, that process would have been much more painful, much more difficult. So
Incredible how the human brain works and all this, you know, innovation and technology that's available at our fingertips to help improve our lives, you know, and but we got to get the word out there.
You got to get the word out there.
Yeah, that we're going to heal, you know, our country. I mean, our country is sick. Our country is going through a very, very bad mental health problem, and, you know, and it doesn't discriminate. I mean, you have children, you know, that are suffering from mental health. Is this something that kids can even experience with?
Yes. So in our owner's manual, we say that it's cleared for adults age 22 and up because that's the FDA definition of an adult. But a provider can order it for a child. I've, in the last patients, you know, when we looked at our records, for, you know, patients who are using it and, you know, they fill out their warranty registration card with us. I had patients as young as 3 and as old as 95 using it. So it is safe to use. And the instructions are exactly the same. Doesn't matter the age. The only difference is if for whatever reason someone's not verbal enough to communicate when they feel that discomfort, then just treat them at a 1 for 60 minutes.
So what does it feel like? Does it feel like a shocking type sensation?
So everybody's different. It's designed to be subsensory. And that's one thing, especially with if someone's treating pain and they're using the AS-trodes, those self-adhesive electrodes, they'll call and complain that they're not feeling anything. And we tell them it's not like a TENS unit where your muscles are twitching from it. It is a very low current. You might feel a little tingling from the electrodes, but generally your nervous system even adapts to that pretty quickly and you don't notice it anymore. What I notice when I use it, especially if I'm really kind of stressed out, is within a few minutes, what the device does, one of the things it does is automatically induce an alpha state, which is what you're trying to achieve when you're meditating or you're doing yoga, like you mentioned. And so within a few minutes, you get that feeling. And then, after that, I may notice it, I may not. I use mine most often at work. And so I'll get that initial, that feels really good. And then I may, throughout the course of the treatment, still feel kind of okay, yeah, I got that tingling from my muscles relaxing. Or I may notice that I'm not, I'm laughing more with my coworkers instead of like, in fact, there was one day I came in, I kind of warned everybody, like, guys, I don't know why. I'm generally a very pleasant person. I'm in a bad mood today. And after about 2 hours, one of my coworkers went, you need to put your Alpha-Stim on. I'm like, okay, physician, heal thyself. And I went and I did put the device on. So, and it helped. I was a much more pleasant coworker the rest of the day, I'm told. So
I can't wait to try this. I mean, I just, like I said, I've heard some really great things about it from some family members, or from one family member that I have currently receiving this treatment for the last 3 months now. And like I said, she called me in tears saying, Brian, you have got to try this. It's changed my life. It is life changing. But, I receive so many text messages and emails and direct messages on Facebook from veterans. The veteran community, it is an at-risk population.
They're seeking for something that works. That's not a pill.
Yes,
they are. And
yes. And the problem is that so many veterans, I'll get these messages, the majority of them coming in after midnight, all the way up till 5 in the morning. And they're completely self-medicating themselves on top of the pills. And that's what puts them in this state of mind to where they don't have a way forward. They are hopeless and they are helpless. And so if we could offer some hope here, again, even if it's just the slightest amount to build on, like, I feel a little bit better today. Let's see what it does tomorrow, or the day after, or the day after, and give it a chance to work. I think we could see some incredible results in a vulnerable and at-risk community. And once we heal this community, that right there is going to be your biggest billboard. And there's not an amount of money that could ever replace that right there. That word of mouth. The veteran community is a tight-knit community. It
really is. And that what you described is exactly what I saw working in my clinic. And it's exactly what I see around other VAs that are using, ordering the Alpha-Stim for their veterans more frequently. There is that word of mouth. There is that shouting it from the rooftops. They talk about it at the VFW. They talk about it at the American Legion. They talk about it, when they, at the coffee shop, when they get together, I'm to the point now where I can almost always spot a group of veterans when I go out somewhere. And so it's fun to listen to them talk. And then, like I said, my experience was they told each other about it. They told each other how great it worked. We have a study that was conducted at the Houston VA 12 years ago, I believe, that gave trained veterans on 4 or 5 different devices. Alpha-Stim was one of them. And then let them come in as a walk-in, check, ask for any of those devices, check it out, use it, bring it back in. And the veterans asked for Alpha-Stim 73% of the time because it worked. So.
Yeah. And again, it's not just throwing pills at something. And like I said, the VA, they are the most on time and proficient when it comes to pills. A lot of the other stuff, they have that system completely now. And that right there is, they're getting the medicine out to the veterans always in a timely manner. But that's one of the few things that is done in a timely manner. And that should be, that's good and bad at the same time, obviously. But It's disheartening, as well, to know that, again, the treatment is pills, and it's always going to be pills.
Right.
And
Well,
once
and
you
that's, and
not,
yeah, I mean, not to just talk down on the VA. That's Western medicine in general.
Mhm.
We've doubled down on chemistry. I mean, even as a civilian, if I go to a doctor and tell them my symptoms, I'm going to walk out with a prescription.
Right.
They're
Yeah,
not,
you're right.
they're
Yeah.
not going to say, well, you need to start exercising. You need to start eating better. They're not going to do that. They're going to give me a pill.
Right.
And there's two reasons for that. One, that's how they're trained in medical school. These medications treat these symptoms. And then they've got the reps from these pharmacy companies coming in, giving them samples.
Yeah. And everything else.
Yeah. And, give this, it works. Give this, it works. Give this, it works. And, not to say medications are bad. They're definitely needed.
Mm-hmm.
But, the nervous system is electrochemical in nature.
Mm-hmm.
Medicines treat the chemical part of it, but ignore the electrical. Alpha-Stim treats the electrical part of it, and then down the line has an effect on the chemical aspects. So you can't treat one without the other.
Right. And again, I'm not, I wasn't saying anything bad about the VA.
Right.
The VA is showing some signs of improving, like always, something big and bureaucratic. You're always going to have your pluses and your minuses. It's not all that. I've worked with the VA hand in hand in resolving a lot of issues that we have made better. My only concern is that there's so many veterans out there. I mean, I just heard of an active duty military member died from serotonin syndrome. There are doctors that are not on the same pages as their clinical psychologists or psychiatric practitioners that are giving anxiety and depression meds on top of what their primary care provider is giving them. So a lot of the times these cocktails are counterintuitive, and they're working against each other, creating in a lot of the times death. Because of all of the risks that are associated with pills and medications and all that other stuff. So again, if we can help eliminate that, even just a little bit, we are going to be saving lives here. And that is why you are in business. You are a crisis guy. You have always put yourself in the middle of a crisis. And we got 2 minutes left here. And I want to know, how are you doing? How do you live your life knowing that you're always in the middle of a crisis trying to help people?
That's a great question. I get a lot of satisfaction from that. I get a lot of, my favorite thing, my job involves a lot of travel. And that's my favorite part of it, because I'm going out and I'm in the front lines and I'm talking to the providers and the patients and all that. And just like when I was working for the VA and I was doing therapy, my veterans would ask me the same thing. Man, you listen to our crap, not the word they used, all day long. How are you doing? And I'd be like, man, actually it helps, because hearing stories like yours helps me realize my problems aren't that bad. I mean, I've got issues, I've got problems, everybody does. But if when I worked for the VA, if I showed up like, oh, woe is me, I'm gonna have a hard time paying this bill next week, or when I was going through a divorce, or whatever, within 2 conversations with a veteran, I'm like, okay, I can handle my thing. It's okay. But it is very rewarding. It helps me put my problems in perspective, not to minimize my issues, but put them in perspective, which is always a good thing. That's what I would try to do with my veterans is, you've got a lot of issues, but let's not blow them up, and then I've got, my wife currently is very, very supportive. She's my biggest cheerleader. Her family is great. My family is great. There's a good environment here in the office. It's one of the most pleasant places I've ever worked, as far as getting along with coworkers and building each other up and all that. So I'm probably better than I've been in a really, really long time. So,
I came to you. You have a boots on the ground perspective. You've put yourself in the middle of this crisis, if you will. And you're an honorable man. And, you know, like I said, I wanted to reach out to you because I'm a solutions-based guy, and I'm all about action. I'm all about making a real difference in the veteran community when and where I can. Now, we wholeheartedly appreciate and sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the military and veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication to our great nation is truly admirable.